I think that slowly we can start our special panel, discussion panel. And there is again the mixture of the professors and the practitioners, which was our idea that we combine the theory and the practice, because this is the main direction when our contemporary university have to go, especially because we are at the University of Economics in Katowice, so we concentrate on the business, and business without practice is nothing, right? So, and as I mentioned this morning, the sustainability is one of the most important issues nowadays in the service management. So sustainability is not only related to the tangible goods, to the pollutions, to the other issue, but it's also related to the services. Also, we're gonna discuss this problem from the consumer point of view. So I'm so happy that I can introduce you these fantastic members of the panel. I will start with the chair, Professor Jolanta Zrałek. She's the professor of consumer behavior and the Department of Consumption Research at our university. I would like to welcome, well, actually the first speaker, Szymon Kowalski, Vice President of the Polish Wind Energy Associations. He became ill yesterday, so unfortunately he cannot join us today. But definitely we have Magdalena Hilgner. She's the manager, legal advisor, AY Law, so welcome. I would like to welcome very warmly Michał Szalas-Dao, leader of the Sustainable Finance section, BNP Paribas. Welcome. And now we are going to our alumni. So Michał Wyszyński, president of the management board, co-owner of Occident Forest Poland, alumni of our university. And this morning we have a chance to listen to a presentation of Mateusz Szylkner, Senior Operation Manager in Amazon Fulfillment Poland. Welcome again. As we know, he's also our alumni. And Aleksandra Burgiel-Szewc, she's also our alumni. She's the professor also in our department, Department of Consumption Research of our university. Welcome. So I would like to give the floor to Jola, and she will be chair of this presentation, of this panel.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity to share with you our thoughts about sustainability in service sector. As you can see from the title of our today's discussion, sustainability challenges in the service sector and their consequences for individual consumption. We like to combine those three elements, those three ideas of the first one of sustainability. Since we are at the Service Management Symposium, it's obvious that we want to talk about services, and as both with Professor Burgiel-Szewc, we represent the Department of Consumption Research. We are the most interested in consumption and consumer behavior. So we are combining those three topics in our discussion. I hope that it will be very fruitful and inspiring for all of us. I would like to welcome our noble panelists. They were already introduced, so I will not repeat the introduction. And we can straight go to the first problem we would like to discuss today. Oh, I have prepared the names. We'll have 3 rounds for questions. The first introduction question is, does sustainability challenge the service sector? So it's the most general. Each of our panelists represent the different sectors, so I think it will be interesting to start with Magdalena.
Thank you very much. It's really nice to be here today with you, and I'll say a few words about my perspective, and I have 2 of them, when it comes to sustainability in service sector. So first view is my view as a consultant, as a lawyer, And what I see through my customers, through my clients' eyes, is that the biggest problem they have is the consciousness of the regulations, sustainable regulations that are upcoming and that are going to be soon implemented in the European Union, but also all over the world, because it's not only EU idea to introduce sustainable regulations, but also India, United States, and China. They are representing a huge capital in order to introduce sustainable regulations. So the consciousness and being aware of what's going to happen soon is extremely challenging for my clients. Let's say there is a project for Green Claims Directive, so-called. So it is basically a project which says that if you are introducing a product on the market which says, let's say, a shampoo is CO2 neutral, you have to prove it and make like present scientific evidence that this shampoo, for example, is CO2 neutral. And a lot of companies, I think in Poland and in the whole Europe, they are not aware that it's coming. So you are bombed by the products that you buy with a lot of claims that are really not true. It's really hard to distinguish what is real and what is just wishful thinking of the producer. Therefore, the sector needs to be ready for the upcoming legal challenges. Not only a legal green claims directive, but also a lot of problems that we see right now is with non-financial disclosures. CSRD directive, EU taxonomy, these are also two very challenging regulations that our clients need to soon try to, which my clients are going to, implement in their everyday solutions and in their financial and non-financial statements. So that's one point. And my service, which is consulting, legal consulting service, is also very challenged because the clients require solutions from us, whereas we don't know the answers yet. So my field of work right now is more or less focused on due diligence when it comes to human rights in the enterprises. So what we did last year and this year, we introduced a special system of assessing whether the companies meet minimum social safeguards, so-called, in the EU taxonomy, and try to understand whether they meet those in their everyday operations. I had the pleasure to work with one of the biggest Polish enterprises from mining and energy sector. And even though it can be easy to say, oh, we are in Europe, yeah, our labor law, our constitutions, they already provide minimum social safeguards. But nowadays requires more compliance from the companies operating in the EU. But and that's another challenge in the sector. Our value chains, these are something that is somehow unraveled, unexplored. So the companies, they have many suppliers from all over the world, and they do not know anything about what are the labor conditions in those countries and whether we can say that we really care about local communities or the value chain is really sustainable. So yeah, to sum it up, there are many challenges and I'm looking forward to them.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's move to the financial sector maybe.
Thank you very much, and happy to speak in front of you today. This is a very important question, sustainability challenge towards service sector. When we talk about sustainability, ESG, and challenges standing in front of the companies, basically we always think first about production companies, which have one or more sites, which have a huge coal footprint. And of course, this is true. How about service sector, banking sector? The challenge is at least the same, or maybe even bigger, because maybe similarly that Magda, working as a so big bank as BNP Paribas, I have chance every day to talk with clients with completely different segments, from multinational corporates toward SME, for example. And what is the challenge standing in front of the bank is not scope 1 or scope 2, for which the footprint is relatively low. Because we have only a few offices, we have not so many cars. Yes, so this is our direct footprint. Yes, but what is really challenging is all the credit portfolio that we as a bank are financing. Yes, so we shoot about what carbon footprint we finance as a whole. Yeah, so we have to take into account every single borrower for which we lend money. So I think that this is a huge challenge. Because it's not so easy to take action at the moment, because our clients do not have enough awareness to implement huge changes. We should act step by step. And our environment, our consumers, clients, people who leave money on our accounts start to demand from us some actions. Why do you still have exposures in the coal sector, in the mining sector, in oil and gas? You have to believe that it's not so easy to talk with our huge clients, for which also this change is really difficult, especially on the Polish market, when energy mix is based on coal still. And we have to remember that energy is one of the key sectors for the safety of the country. So it's not so easy to end up with the credit facility from day to day. So this is really challenging. And what can bank do is two ways. Yes, the first one is defensive one. So implementing ESG ideas, ESG rules into credit process. So when we rate client, which can be potentially our borrower, we also now should ask client not only for financial statement, for its situation on the market, what are the sales, but also how he acts on environmental area, social, what is the social impact of his daily business activity. Is it negative impact or positive impact? Yes, so at the moment, I'm talking about BNP Paribas. For the clients who are rated very low, I mean that the ESG risk is very high. In our perspective, the credit rating is going down. So what does it mean? It means that they borrow money with the higher price. Yes, so maybe for now.
No, that's not. Okay, so Michał, I think that the topic of sustainability is your natural environments. Please share with us your thoughts.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Thanks one more time for the ability to be here. I'm really grateful to speak in University Economicus of Katowice. First of all, talking about the ESG sustainability, let me start with somewhat a bigger perspective, all right? I would come back again to the COVID pandemic in 2019, 2020. What many economists and businessmen missed is this was the biggest monetary system changed since Bretton Woods in 1942 and later 1971 when the gold was the gold standard was thrown away. I'm not talking gold standard in ESG but in economic system. This kind of change is one of the biggest that has ever happened in the global monetary policy, yet almost everyone seems to not think about it in a proper way or missed it. I'll give you an example. The latest time during economical knowledge, the goal is to build a company, to make a good product, to share with the clients. That's why you earn profits, so your stock valuation goes up, so you have the money to finance your employees, and that's the basic economics rights, correct? Well, nowadays it doesn't meet this criteria at the highest possible level. Volkswagen, for example, has its 200 billion euros on its balance sheet, and it's used by selling corporate bonds and the minimum rate, interest rate, right, to the central bank at minimum in comparison for inflation, for example. So the biggest investments fund, the biggest companies on the planet right now was pumped very much with a lot of cash from our monetary system and the central banks. We are headed of the system where maybe without the which is currently being checked in Nigeria country, and ESG is one of the aspects of global transformation. I'm not one of those people who says it's only a cover, but for ESG to make okay, I really believe in ESG industry. I really believe that it's going to be a positive change. However, we see very much need to make this process come as much correct, as much fair, as much sustainable as it goes. I give you also a few examples. For example, BlackRock, the biggest currently investment fund on the planet right now, had its procedures of financing only the companies that has positive ESG impact. In Poland, I spoke to the presidents of the biggest financial institutions in Poland, and they say me like this: Michał, after 2035, we've changed our inner regulations. Only 1% of our credit exposure will be allowed to be given loans to the companies on the projects that are non-climate neutral, correct? After 2035, that's the plan. If I go to the bank in the investment loan, if one of my colleagues comes along with me, I have a business plan that is quite correct, and my colleague has a business plan that is top-notch, top security, top the cash flow, top kind of the business, but he's going to be build another coal power plant, and I'm going to produce furniture from wood. I will be awarded a loan, and he will not, because I will have the positive on the ESG segment, right? That's the plan. In Poland, 3 years ago, there was a which is one of the biggest banks in Poland, financed by the government, and it was called Business Max, and it awarded interest from any loan from any commercial bank, whether it proved that it was spent on the investment that was sustainable, correct? So we need to find a way to implement ESG solutions that will standardize this market, because nowadays, when we come see this business that is going right now, the ESG, but there is not many mathematical formulas that will allow us to build somewhat consensus around it. Everyone is talking about with ESG is focusing on the E letter. Why? Because it was that we can measure some influence based on carbon footprint in the measurement of tons of CO2, right? And this is the measurement that we can point at, right? We can find ourselves in this field. Nobody talks about E, S, and G. Okay, we're talking about it, but how to measure it? What is the good E, S, and G policy? What's the wage gap between men and women in companies? But how do we measure it? Okay, we can measure it mathematically, but many factors depend not on any reality that could be quantified mathematically, but on the political correction and the culture. How can we have the standards of S and G and the corporate behaviors in different cultures, in many countries, different companies, different sectors, right? There are many ways to consider another threats. For example, the mess on today's market. I give you an example. One of my shareholders, as we become a stock market company this year, started to contracts biggest logistic chain, right? And they asked them, okay, you want to win to be our contractor, you will need to prove you are ESG correct. And they paid me 40,000 euros, so I planted trees for them. And I planted those trees, I wrote a certificate, I made it especially for them. I did it, all right? But they only showed them this paper and said, okay, that's good. Nobody ever checked whether I actually planted these trees or not. I didn't do any bad things. I did my job well. But there need to be a standardization on the ESG that is commonly and is fair. There are two more threats. It's called greenwashing and eco-terror that needs to be fought with. Because how can we talk about positive impact of ESG and award and ask everyone to join when there are those procedures that I will tell later, and how many solutions and whether procedures they are based on, I'll talk about you later at my next talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We know a lot about packaging, but I think that Mateusz has something to add in case of sustainability in Amazon or more broadly in e-commerce.
Yes, definitely. I don't want to bore you once again about the packaging. So let's start from the macro perspective. As for the challenges for Amazon and the business in general, I will stick to that, what has been said before, the ESG, starting from non-financial reporting through green claims, ending at the community engagement. This will be the challenge for the company. In case of environment, this is the mostly developed topic, as Michał mentioned. However, in case of environment, the biggest challenge will be scope 3. As for the scope 1, scope 2 emissions, we are able to give you the correct data, correct number. However, in the value chain of companies such as an Amazon, it's quite difficult and hard because we are not just a self-sufficient business. We are rely on suppliers. We have supply of the packaging. We have the supply of energy and also different materials and resources to the company, where the biggest impact on the environment is not from the fulfillment itself, but it's from the Amazon Web Services. We are basing on huge energy consumption there, and we have to be sure that the energy is green. But keeping the environment at the second track, I would like to focus also on the transportation. This will be the biggest challenge for a company basing on e-commerce. We would like to go to net zero carbon emission. However, when in case of fulfillment, your whole operations stays on the roads in the trucks, it is at this moment quite hard to achieve net zero carbon emission. We can go for the electrical vehicles, for electrical trucks and gas-fueled trucks, but this will not solve the case. That's why we are developing the intermodal transportation for the European market to save as much as emission from the roads, and the main slogan for the Amazon is right to take the trucks on the tracks. So we use the harbors, we use the train transportation from China, And then we're using the intermodal ports. For example, here in Silesia region, we have two the closest, one in Dąbrowa Górnicza and the second one in Gliwice, where we can develop the intermodal transportation and avoid emissions on the road. And then we can use the electrical powered trucks to deliver the goods to the fulfillment centers to avoid the emissions. But in general, it will not decrease the emission in total. So as for the customer's perspective, we see and what we can show to the customers is the packaging. But as the business to business, like we have the sellers on the Amazon, for them the biggest challenge, and for us, will be limiting the emissions and the decarbonization of transportation and of the business.
Thank you. I don't know, something is happening to the mic. Yeah? Okay, so let's give the voice to the representative of academia. So Olaf, please.
Okay, thank you very much, and also thank you for inviting me to participate in this panel among all those noble presenters, knowing all the businesses from the side of the business. As I listen to you, I see even more challenges, yes, with each of you talking about the problems, I see more of them, even if I take mostly the perspective of the consumer and consumption. So first of all, what I wanted to mention is that generally, yes, greenwashing. This is the term that is important, because I think that many companies, not only from the service sector, but also most of them, because there are many smaller companies, which think that the problem of sustainability is the problem of big companies, yes? So they don't have to be worried that much. But that's not true, because consumers become more and more aware of not only greenwashing concept or the fact that someone is just promising false things. The consumers are aware that they have the right to demand from the companies of all types, also the service companies, the proper behavior. And this connects me to the second problem, also mentioned by one of you, that it's not only about the environment, yes, because the sustainability is also about the social aspects, for example, so the social rights, human rights, labor rights. And if we see consumers who are, first of all, able to talk to each other, communicate, share the knowledge, very, very fast react to all those false promises or greenwashing practices. But they also share information about, for example, the working conditions, yes, in certain companies. So companies should be prepared for this communication, which is absolutely intense and very fast, very urgent, sometimes even like a wildfire, changing the reputation of the company instantly, yes? So they need to be prepared that they do not take care of the sustainability and their actions in terms of sustainability because it may somehow pay off in the future. It's the only way, because the customers will demand more and more in this area. That's my first thought. But the second is that, especially in service sector, even if we may see this sector as one of the lesser polluters, yes, because education, some cosmetics, some medical services, as you mentioned, financial services, not too much of the pollution. But imagine that we have also gastronomy there, hotels there, and they are polluting, yes? But what I was thinking about, that the one typical attribute of service is that the service is created with the participation of the customer. So if the service is to be created in a sustainable way, the customer needs to participate in this aspect as well. So that the customer must be properly prepared and ready to be sustainable, to allow the company to become more sustainable. It's the matter of cooperation, yes? If I require from my provider, service provider, that it's providing the service in the most sustainable way. I also need to be prepared that I will have to participate in this process, but I need to be prepared, like the hotel guests who are informed about the consequences of laying the towels on the floor, yes? And of course the hotels are trying different ways to diminish the waste, the washing costs and so on, but again, it needs cooperation, and this cooperation needs communication. Thank you for this point.
Okay, thank you for your comments, and it's very good ending of the first round, because now we want to go a step forward, and the question is that, considering the consumptions, for what are the consequences, in your opinion, of course, of introducing sustainability rules to the service market? It means, how do they affect individual consumption? Maybe we'll start this time with financial market.
Thank you. So I think that the effect will be for sure impactful. From the bank perspective, the most important asset, tool to shape individual consumption habits is of course money. And we as a bank decide which companies, which ideas for the business should be financed and which not. Yes, so taking into account our example, we, for example, have ESG sector policies for some sectors, specific sectors. As I mentioned previously, for coal sector, we have an exit strategy. But for example, we mentioned as well the social part of ESG. And for example, we are one of the banks that we exit clients who has a significant revenue from tobacco. So if we are one of the first banks in the sector, we hope that in the following years, the next financial institutions will follow our path, not only our path, but the path of the first banks that did this, that resigned from the revenue from this kind of companies, which of course is still significant, and we hope that in the following years we can change the customer consumption in this area. Because if tobacco companies will have problems to get financing from the banking institution, for sure they also will try to reshape their business activity and try to find a different way to stay on the market. Yes, so from banking perspective, I think we have two ways for shaping the consumption. The first is the direct. For example, we can have eco-loans, eco-mortgages, which can be better, which can be more attractive for the client. For example, when we finance the green building, the green mortgage, if it will be the price will be better, we can shape the interest of buying green or zero energy consumption building than the different one. Yes, the second path is indirect. So as I mentioned, this is the way which companies we finance. Yes? So if we leave some sectors or try to support these ones that we think that they are sustainable, so we give a chance for the sustainable companies to be more attractive on the market, to provide their products or services in a better way for their consumers, and reshape the whole economy towards sustainable services and products.
Okay, thank you very much. So maybe Magda, you will add something from your perspective.
Yep. First of all, maybe I have to underline something that only introducing the rules won't fix everything. What I see is that we are eager of public and private cooperation in this area, because we can imagine that even if Polish, let's say, companies, they want to be sustainable, and we say about environment, which according to most of us, it's something very we talked about it a lot of times, but still, Polish companies, they need clean energy to be sustainable, and that's something that the government should take care of, because without the clean energy, they cannot be sustainable, they cannot lower their CO2 footprint, and they will lose to their international competition, and the consumers will choose the products that are more or less more reliable when it comes to the green energy. That's our problem. The service sector won't solve it alone, because only the PV or wind energy, it's not going to feel the need of the energy in the whole Polish sector. So that's the first point that we are missing in here, that we need a serious engagement from the government sector in order to finance the transition. And those who are not going to catch this train of transformation, they're going to lose towards their international or even European competition. When it comes to another point, coming back to the social aspect and measuring social aspect, because sorry to get back to that, but that's particularly interesting to me. And when it comes to measuring social impact, that's something that I did last year and this year. When it comes to checking the minimum social safeguards of Polish companies, I can compare it to some kind of due diligence when you buy a company. So you have some kind of things that are uncertain, but more or less you know what you're buying, you know what you're investing in. So what we did, we are focusing on OECD guidelines for multinational companies, on UNGC guidelines, and that is a huge work to assess your policies, assess convictions of your company in certain areas, in environmental and labor law. We assessed also press releases about the company, so the rumors about what is going on inside your company. We also measure the voice of your employees, so we are asking how they are feeling about their impact on the local initiatives, and we are trying to measure it. It's not perfect, of course, but it will be perfect soon, I hope, when we will conduct many of those due diligences. But it is happening right now, and I'm happy to see that. So yeah. Coming to the consequences, I think when we will have the certain informations about the companies, the consumers will be able to make more conscious choices, and they will move towards the sustainable products, sustainable services. And according to the EU poll that was conducted for the purpose of Green Claims Directive, the consumers mostly, they don't believe, or they are not sure whether they can trust in the claims that are presented on the products that are eco-friendly or net zero or whatever. So it shows. Yeah, exactly. Pet friendly, bees friendly, tree friendly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, free from something. So when we'll have those rules and we'll be able to assess whether something is correct or it's false, we'll be seeing, I hope, moves towards more sustainable solutions, more sustainable products. And I hope Polish market will wake up soon and try to catch our neighbors when it comes to substantiating the claims.
Okay, thank you very much. So what are the consequences for individuals according to Michał?
Well, I might say this. Thank you very much for talking about the previous topic because you really got me on this point. Before I started the business connected with the trees, I worked in EY in Katowice in audit assurance. So the company mergers, acquisitions, and valuation are top one specialty in my faculty. However, I'll tell you something, and I'll be as simple as it could get. The next Microsoft company, the next Apple, the next world's biggest company will be connected to ESG itself. It's my prediction, and I think it's gonna be true on the various different aspects. As we come back to our human history during the medieval times, the prehistorical times, let us think, what was the biggest power accumulations centers during among history? It was the people who ran the decision about who's worth trust, who's not, who's cool, funny, and who's not, who's available to work with, and who's not. And talking about the aspects of life that could be quantified in mathematical way, there is no possibility that there will be some world organization that will deduce 2 + 2 = 5, and this is a new mathematical standard, because that's what comes through. It comes from math. Everyone can agree on the basic point. But in case of ESG, the first year, calculating your carbon footprint, I'll ask you about your best practices. I'll ask you about your financial data. I'll ask you about what packaging do you use to drink your mineral waters, and so on and so on. Next period, I'll ask you more data. Next period, I'll ask you your balance sheets, every financial operation you make, every way of the supply chain that goes through you in the economic system, and soon I'll know everything. Who trades with which companies, what margin, how profit flows, who's working with who, how can I define the sustainability of one company on another, who's worth awarding financial credits, on what rates, interest rates, and I get the margin of every point. That's the next big company that's going to be built in Europe, I guess. That's my prediction, and I don't think it will be built by external capital. It could be built in European Union by external capital, but not the external knowledge. And it's not the case of economy, in my prediction, it's the cause of geopolitics. When I spoke to various investment fund managers connected to ESG in the United States, I might tell you that they are 15 years ahead in terms of carbon credit knowledge, United States, in comparison to European Union. They also have future contracts. Well, that's their financial culture or on carbon sector. But as we come to nowadays situations about this Ukrainian conflict, after World War II, when Marshall Plan was implemented, the next power which is connected to Germany that was built in European Union, before the European Union nowadays was even set, is that, okay, you cut your country by half and cut yourself from the east, but we give you money to rebuild and we give you our markets to sell your cars, your product. Nowadays, the multilateral power is true. And the United States wants Europe to follow, to cut from the globalization procedures that United States even created, but they do not have so much to offer in return as after the World War II. The debt is $30 billion instead of 17. It doubled as a couple of pandemic years. So the European Union, I think, this is my prediction, won't allow the margins to flow to the another side of the West. It will be built, it will be here. As connected to the influence on the particular customer, it depends on the methodologies that will be implemented. This is my another assumption, because it will be built rather top-down or bottom-up. Let me briefly explain. Building top-down means that customers need to bear the cost of the ESG and green transformation, right? And it's also connected to various procedures that make people sometimes, not everyone, but make people guilty. They are participants in the living, right? So to not bear the cost on customers and set companies free, there is another way to solve this issue, and it's bottom up. But it's also dangerous, in my opinion, because if the customers are not entirely guilty about the pollutions, the first year, no, because they bought from the upper, and we come to the top one producer, and we implement on the cost on the top level, that the supply chain will move from the upside point from one country to another, probably to China and to the cheapest possible world producers that are not implementing these strict ESG procedures in this country. So both ways have their advantages and disadvantages, and the middle point between one way or another will be to share the cost between the final customers and the producers. And there is a big question how to do this. If a company has its employees that are polluting the atmosphere by, for example, buying Coca-Cola instead of mineral water, who needs to bear the cost? The company, the customer, the Coca-Cola? The company has its supply chain connected to Amazon. Who needs to bear this cost? The company, because they chose Amazon, the Amazon company, because they chose this kind of cars on another one, or the customers of this company, because they chose this delivery, this company that delivers goods and services, or another. And it drives many and multiplies many questions that needs to be answered, and dependently how they will be answered and how it will be implemented, we will know the exact impact on the singular customer.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm glad that you have mentioned about Amazon because I have the same question to Mateusz.
Okay, thank you very much. Starting from the rules that are imposed on the market and on the individual clients, I would like to focus not on fulfillment this time, but on Amazon Web Services. As this kind of our branch is right now supporting individual contributors and individual companies in reaching net zero carbon. And together with Atos Corporation, the IT company, we launched the survey and the research asking 4,000 companies about their plans concerning decarbonization. And the results was that almost 90% of the companies have in its plans net zero carbon emission. But when we asked what is the plan for getting to the point of net zero carbon emission, only 35% was able to give us the answer. So here is the challenge and the opportunity for us as the Amazon to share our platform based on the Amazon cloud that helped to reduce the carbon emission. And for example, the survey has been made in European countries. It was Germany, France, the United Kingdom, and Spain. We asked about the emissions, whether the companies are able to tell us what are the levels of their emissions and what they need to do to get, for example, to fit the concept of Fit for 55. And the companies were able to say what is in the scope 1 and the scope 2 of the emissions. However, in the scope 3, no one was able to value the value chains of the emissions. That is why we proposed the companies to use the cloud computing service concerning the emission. And one of the good and the flagship example of cooperation with the AI, IT, and the cloud computing service is the British association concerning the farming and the breeding. It's agriculture organization, and thanks to the cloud computing, they will be able to assess what is the greenhouse gases production caused by the animals, by the food for the animals, by the nutrition that we use for the animals, and basing on this, the company is able to assess what is the impact, the real impact of the greenhouse gases emission on the environment. So the aim of the survey was also to ask the companies, to ask individual CEOs, what is their prediction to be net zero carbon, and whether it is possible with the support of the AI and the technology. And the response was very positive, and the companies and the boards believes that they will be able to achieve the net zero carbon emission target, but with support of the external companies. So as Michał mentioned, there is a need of a company that will be based strictly on the ESG, that help the companies, the individuals, to report properly their businesses and activities.
Okay, thank you very much. And Ola, could you add something to this question?
Yes, I think it will be very short and maybe sounding strange at the beginning, because when I think about the consequences for the consumers of introducing sustainability to any activity, but of course we are talking about the service sector, I think that their lives, I mean consumers, will be a bit easier and much, much, much harder. Because as it was already mentioned here, the companies, if they really adopt this system of clear information providing, yes, about all the aspects of the production, provision, supply chains, and so on, they will get more information. It will, of course, enable them to make more rational, better, probably also choices, to distinguish between the companies that are providing services in a sustainable and unsustainable way. So this will be the additional criterion on the basis of which it will be easier to make the sustainable and unsustainable choice. But considering the fact that consumers are in fact already very busy with making choices, yes, sometimes they feel choice overload, which means that if we add them additional criterion by adding a lot of different pieces of information that they need to collect and include into their decision process, it will be much harder. So that's one point. But the second point, someone of you asked who will pay for this. I'm sure that they will pay for this. I'm sure that consumers will have to pay for all the positive changes in the businesses. Maybe I am a pessimist in this way, but whatever I see and whatever I can learn from history, always the weakest part of the cycle and process pays for everything, yes? And even if we say that we have consumer market, customer market, that we are strong, that's only in terms of, yes, collecting information, exchanging information on internet, but let's be serious, yes? Can we negotiate with Amazon? Or can we do something that really changes the way businesses perform their actions? Of course, my husband always says, okay, we vote with our legs, so I can go somewhere else. Yes, but still, if there is no other choice, yes, no other option, or I really want to be somewhere, like to visit special place and there is only one hotel there, yes, and even if I know that it's not providing the sustainable service, or I know they are providing very sustainable service, but they are so expensive, what shall I do? Yes, so they will pay. That's why I think their lives will be harder. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know that we had some predictions in your parts, but the last round concerns strictly your predictions. So feel free your imagination and let's imagine how consumers' lifestyles will be after all those changes. What is the perspective for the next years? I know that the perspectives are different. For SDGs, it is 2030. For European Union, very ambitious goals, it's 2050. But let's say let's discuss the next 10 to 20 years. And by the way, instead of the typical summary of our discussion, I would like to propose you to create or to think about the creation of the 3 scenarios. So what is the pessimistic way, change, optimistic, and at the end, what is the most probable change in the future toward sustainability? So let's get started with Michał.
Thank you. Of course, this is very, I think, the most difficult question today, because we don't know what will happen within the year, taking into account how many changes, disruptions we are seeing in the media every day. Yes, so pandemics, wars, something that nobody could imagine, 2 or 4 years ago. What I can say, and for what in what I believe, is that we are in the ongoing process of change in terms of our consumption, touching ESG part. I think that within 5 or 10 years, in the last 5 and 10 years, our consumption changed already. Yes, I think that we all, as a consumers, change something in our behavior, what we choose in the grocery, in the shop, and so on. I think we are, as I mentioned, we are all consumers, and I think that, of course, we are more aware. We would love to choose the sustainable services, the sustainable products, but I think that 3 points are very important. The first is that what we choose. We choose products or services that we trust, that we like, and that we can afford. Yes. So if I go to the petrol station, and of course I would like to use electric car, but if I imagine that on the petrol station with a combustion engine car I will spend 10 or 12 minutes, I will choose this car than to stay every single day around maybe 60 minutes to charge my, for example, Tesla. Yes, when I choose the bottle with the water, I would like to choose that one that is, for example, 70% less plastic used to this bottle. But I have to be sure that when I put my bottle with the water inside my backpack with my personal laptop, I must be sure that it will not break because of the less plastic used, and it will be trustful for me, so on and so on. Yes. So what is important for companies to provide services and products with the sustainable impact that will be as good, as strong, as trustful as the products that we use today and that are negative for the environment. And coming back to the scenarios, yes, the optimistic one, I believe I'm the optimist, but I think that in the optimistic scenario, the regulation will be very impactful for the business, and then the global corporation will impact all the value chains, and we will see that indeed we can use sustainable products in 7-10 years, for example. Yes, that it will be standard on the market. In the pessimistic way, I think that it can be seen that this whole transformation is too expensive, and the market will not join, the real economy will not join it, and it will be, the optimistic scenario will will be held in maybe 25, 30 years. Yeah, and the most probable what I see is that there will be something in the middle, and in 15, 20 years we will have a choice what we can choose, and the price between sustainable and non-sustainable service and product will be slightly different, and the consumer will have a choice.
All right, so I'll continue. And I'll start maybe with the most probable scenario. And I think it's not going to change a lot because for, let's say, 5, 10 years, we won't see huge difference, I think. It's, as I see myself as a consumer and the polls that we are making at EY to see what are the consumers' ambitions when it comes to sustainable choices, they don't want to pay for it, but they want it. So I'm not talking about big companies that are going to push the change. I'm talking about clients, consumers like us. And I see this role as a parent. So as a parent, I want my child to have a better future. And I know that my individual choices may not change the world, but every little helps. So as far as I can choose something that is better, but I'm not overpaying for that, I'm choosing what's best for me, for my child, for the future. But if that's going to be more expensive, or it will require a lot of time for me, so I don't know, I will spend 1 hour per day in order to, you know, take out my trash in order to distinguish the plastic from carton and so on. I'm not going to do this because it's, I don't know, 1 or 2 hours I can spend on myself. So that's, I think, the most probable scenario. The pessimistic one, and that's my biggest fear, is that the consumers will share the vision of, I don't know, let's say green communism or conspiracy theory, that it's not worth to invest in sustainable choices, and they won't participate in change. And there won't be any carrot that's going to encourage the customers to make more sustainable, more environmentally or socially friendly products. And the optimistic one is that we will get some kind of incentives in order to choose more sustainable products. And it won't be only about the money, but mostly about the money, but we'll get some kind of additional value in the products in order to make sustainable choices. But as I said, I don't think the sustainability transformation will depend on consumers. So it may be small piece of this puzzle, the consumers' behaviors. But yeah, I hope there is, I have faith in the economy and the market, and that the big players will choose the green side.
Thank you very much. And Miha, what is your opinion in this field?
Light green side and dark green side. Okay. As it comes to the average customers, I think this is a complex issue, and it could not be said one way or another whether they will be aware of that, not aware, optimist or nor pessimist. Well, in case of day-to-day life, well, I might say just one expertise, 51% people in Poland think that they do not pay value-added tax, and 21% of people in this country think that they do not pay any taxes, right? So I think they'll affect them, of course, but by the way of their spendings and their bank account, on the awareness level of the global finances and so on. However, I see a positive change and see them in the generations, the younger generations, that is greatest possible way generations to see the change in. Let's remember that in this particular country, 30 years ago, it was normal to smoke cigarettes everywhere, not to take care about the health as much as we do nowadays, right? The overall effect is could be on the same level because the quality of our food dropped significantly. Well, however, in terms of participating in the ESG, the green transformation of normal people, let's say, that's connected to everybody of us, I think they will participate if the good philosophy will be implemented. And I'm talking about the issue that Magda mentioned about what can we do to not make the people see conspiracy theories in ESG and not willing to participate. It's very simple. It's implement good solutions. And one of the biggest possible examples is differing the carbon offset, the carbon emissions, and carbon neutrality. When the customers see companies that are proposing solution in the partner way, in the fair way, they will participate, and they do. But when they see greenwashing procedures, they won't. The electric cars is for this is the best possible example. Their carbon offset is smaller than the diesel engines because this doesn't emit CO2 day on day moving, but the climate neutrality, the level of producing one singular electric cars is worth 90 years of running a diesel engine, correct? So there's a difference between climate neutrality and the carbon offset neutrality. I took this approach and built the business that we're currently in this idea. We've been in timber industry for almost 15 years, and we had subsidiary company set up like 5 years ago, connected to planting trees, the forest. And it was based on a Paulownia tree. This is pretty much one of the fastest growing tree on planet. It's from Asia. And our first motive of the business is to make forests from the investors as investing, right? Because it produces good quality of timber logs and good amounts of wood that is currently deficient right now, because 40% of every log cut in European Union is exported to China, and there's a great shortage of timber in European Union. So they were investing in the forest as their investment, as financial investment, because we were buying the wood from the plantations. However, we came into the ESG sectors as far as we discovered the amount of CO2 absorbed by the forest. So we approach the companies, we calculate their carbon offset on the methodology that we've discovered, and we are this year supporting by taxonomy, the legal issues, and the carbon credits nowadays standards, of course. Our first biggest client in Poland was InvestCavs. This is the biggest economic investing conference in this part of Europe. And we calculated the carbon footprint based on the data they provided us. And we say, okay, if you plant this amount of trees, they will consume the same amount of CO2 that is your equivalent, right? And the cost of green transformation, let's say that for you, will not be counted on the balance sheet as a cost, but as an investment. Because when the trees grow, we will cut them, they will regrow. We give carbon capture certificate because we'll make furniture out of it. I will share the profits with you. And this is connected to ESG in the various other aspects, because it is also financing the local government, the local investors, and benefiting not those who are creating policies, who are creating conferences, not talking about you, Katowice, the people like Greenpeace or other organizations. No, it will make the transformation benefit those who has the biggest impact on it. That is why I'm so much a believer in carbon credit ideology, right? Because nowadays the ESG system implemented in European Union, it's like a fine implemented on energy producers, the coal burners, and so on. And the money collected from ESG is collected to the European Union bureaucracy and spent on various countries the way the Brussels thinks it's suitable. For example, Mój Prąd, My Current, this is the program in Poland that was financing, government was financing the solar panels of individuals, right? It was financed by that. But carbon credit ideology connects The individual who owns an asset, like a plantation of forest or cucumbers or corn or whatever, that is consuming the CO2 and connects directly to the emitter of CO2. So those who benefit the system the most way are the same people, individuals, businesses who consume the CO2 from the atmosphere. There are other aspects than CO2 itself, because we cannot make all the transformations moving all the CO2 to carbon offset, just plant the trees, plant the crops and do whatever we made before. But it's a good turning point to start somewhere at the system that is designed on a fair level, that is transparent for everyone and has a good ideology about it. This is why we've connected it also with the Web3 technology, that the data about the carbon offset we incorporate and write on blockchain system, that it can be verified by every individual on the planet on every time. We've got our partners. One is a Spanish company. I cannot mention the name because it's a low stock market company that has their accreditation of European Commission, and the other one already has accreditations and selling CO2 to companies like Microsoft and Google. So as we implement transparency to the carbon credit system, because there was the one thing that was holding its back, I talked about the mess on this industry, but if we implement transparency and the good solutions, it's a great turning point to start, because the local individuals, the people, will see the true in this method, and following it, we could start building the green transformation on the fair level.
Thank you very much, Michał. It sounds like quite optimistic scenario for the future. And what about e-commerce?
Okay, so maybe I will start from the pessimistic. We are in Poland, so stereotypically we know how to complain. So let's start with that scenario. Here I would like to mix some e-commerce experience and my private experience. We are thinking about the change. We are thinking about differ something in the future. However, the next plan for the first nuclear power plant in Poland is set for 2035. So it's not even the horizon of 10 years. It's 12 years from now. So I don't think that it will change a lot in the future. Needless to say, we are living in the region of Silesia, where we have, I think that's a part of Warsaw, the most polluted air in Poland. So I don't think that it will change a lot. But from the... Yes, Zakopane, I forgot about that. It's behind the fog. Okay, but coming back to the topic from the e-commerce perspective, we are also not very optimistic. Let's get to the more reliable or the most probable scenario. We based on the research made last year by the Ecobarometer and by the e-commerce in Poland 2022. So we asked simply the customers what is their approach towards sustainability, towards changes in environment, and we asked whether they are keen to buy products that are sustainable. And 90% replied, yes, we will. And the next question was whether you would like to participate in the costs of making the business more sustainable, getting better packaging, less efficient delivery. So here, 70% said that yes, we will, but if we ask what is the threshold of the participation, so it was 10%. So at this moment, only 40% of the customers replied that, okay, we will be able to participate in the costs. This has been changed recently during let's play the open cards, the economic crisis we have right now. The inflation rate just hyped, and the prices on the market are much more expensive. So the customers, even if they would like to take care of the sustainability, they don't want to pay for that. And as long as the economical situation is the same, it won't change. We can go for the education, we can show the best behaviors, we can show the positives, but if the customer needs to participate with its own money, then we will not be successful. Taking approach from the Amazon perspective and the e-commerce, we are not giving the choice to the customers whether you would like to get something in the plastic bag or the paper bag, and we're just sending in the paper bag. But in the long run, it might be more expensive. I'm not saying that now we are going to increase the Amazon Prime rate for the customers, but it will be recompensated by the sellers on Amazon, etc. Because somehow the gap, the financial gap, must be covered. And as Ola mentioned, unfortunately, this will be paid by the customers mostly. Also, when we have the companies that are able to cover the gap or to invest in green resources like building, I don't know, own power plants, solar power plants, going for the direct line with the energy, it is okay. And that companies will be able to get to the net zero. But even if we have the legislation without the execution and without the support is useless. That's why I think that this is the most realistic scenario. And the positive one is I would like to breathe the fresh air next year, but I don't think so. I have 34 years and my lungs like 40 years old. You know? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And are we staying with this pessimistic line?
I feel like it's even worse.
Oh, gosh.
Because my realistic scenario is the pessimistic one. I mean, that's what I see, yes? Like that the most pessimistic visions are probably the most probable. So the likelihood of all those things going wrong way is the highest according to the Murphy rules. But my pessimism has a special source, I would say. In fact, in 2009, I started to be very interested and even like totally shocked, amazed, fascinated by the changing consumption as a result of the crisis. I was happy about the crisis because I could see people finally doing something, yes, changing their behaviors, collaborative consumption, sharing economy, people coming together, yes, cooperating, really cutting the cost of unnecessary things, using things for longer, frugal, finally. I was so happy. I was so into, wow, we needed this shake, yes? We needed this challenge and this huge change in external conditions, finally, yes? Fortunately, it wasn't that bad, yes, like war or something, but it has shaken us enough. And I thought, yes, it is enough. So finally, the stimulus that we needed. And what? 5 years later, I was crying because almost everything went back to business, to old times, to all the typical overconsumption. Yes, to using, overusing, to buying, throwing away, and again, and again. So I am pessimistic, yes, unfortunately. I cannot prepare any more pessimistic, realistic thing than that. And even if you say about the optimistic aspect that maybe there will be some incentive, for me that is, yeah, we need even more like a huge crisis or what, because this is the only incentive people really feel. This is the only thing that changes us. That is so sad. Why can we not change just because we want change? Maybe I'm too long, the researcher of the consumer behavior, and that's why I feel sad about this. And I am optimistic about individuals. Yes, I do believe in people anyways, yes, but I do believe in individuals changing something. So I totally agree with you, yes. As a parent, as a member of certain local community, I care about all the small steps I can do, and I believe that those steps matter. And what I do also is telling other people that their small steps also matter. because this is the only thing I believe, the only thing positive and optimistic, that if we all take small steps, no matter how small they are, we can change something. Don't wait for the governments, don't wait for the businesses. Just do your own business, yes? Take your own small step, and then something will change. But be constant, yes? Keep it. If you get a bit more like wealthier or affluent or able to go somewhere, don't forget about all those situations where you resigned something, where you were able to just reject another need to buy the 7th pair of shoes or something like this, yes? Remember about the roots and remember about what's the most important. People, love, relations, yes? So that's what I believe. And that's the optimistic part, that we ourselves can change, but on the basis of what's inside us, not what's outside. Because the outside things may be very shaking, very troubling, like the war in Ukraine, yes, the huge energy crisis, the inflation that is running. And still I can listen to so many people saying, yeah, I'm just jumping for the weekend to Paris, yes, because the flights are so cheap. Wow. Or I just went there, or I just bought another pair of shoes or some things, yes? So where is the inflation? Where are the prices and the problems and everything? So there are still people who seem not to see the problem, yes, in a broader scale, and I don't think that we will teach them the lesson very soon. The big events, big challenges, big crises, teach us the lesson, but only for some short time. So the only thing we can do for longer time, in a longer perspective, is to change ourselves inside and then follow this. Yes? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm glad that we left light in this tunnel. We still have a few minutes for questions and for comments, and I strongly encourage you to ask our experts and maybe try to comment those scenarios. Maybe your point of view is more optimistic, hopefully.
Any questions? Be brave.
So I think that something came into my mind when you were talking about that 2009 crisis. So do we see anti-consumption and sustainable consumption as related? Because what you were talking about, I think that was more about anti-consumption.
Sorry, could you repeat?
Yeah, so that was more about anti-consumption, I think. So what you are saying, that sounded to me. So that sounded more like anti-consumption. Yeah. So the relationship between anti-consumption and sustainable consumption. Yes. So we cannot think of driving sustainable consumption only by promoting anti-consumption.
Maybe not, but I think like this would be the most important part, yes? Not only to like change each single decision, so decide between unsustainable and sustainable brand. Sometimes the most important fact is not to buy. Yes, so yes, you are probably true and right that I see the best future for the planet in general in decreasing consumption, which is not very positive for businesses. But yes, I do believe that the most important thing that the consumer can do to save the planet is to limit the consumption and purchases. Yeah. Yes, I know. I don't know what I'm doing here, yes, as an economist. Because no matter what we do, I know that we will be buying, yes? And there will be need to produce things. So this might be my just general idealistic opinion, more like subjective, yes? But obviously I understand that the realistic part is that there is the market, there is the demand and the supply, and they must be working together, yes? So hopefully that the market rules can somehow be cooperated, combined with the sustainability idea, not necessarily by cutting the consumption by half or 80% or so. But still, we must think about all those things that we throw away, that we resign too early, that we do not try to, for example, renovate, yes? Like the dishwasher at my home. Hopefully today the repairman will come because we cannot wash the dishes properly, it's broken. So, but we try, yes, before we decide to just throw it away. So some things like that. Yes. Yes. That's I think that's the more philosophical or ethical question. Where can we combine the human being with the consumer? Yes, in such a way that they go together and no one is ashamed of each other. Yes.
Any other questions or positive comments?
I don't know whether it's a question or an answer, but I have a feeling that ultimately we can't tell consumers not to consume. Okay? Unfortunately, that's not possible. Not always. You know, some of the things, yes. But we all know that irrespective of which country, the firms or the organizations benefit by producing whatever they produce. So my question is there a possibility that just like the taxes that the companies have to pay, or just like anything else that they need to pay, put aside towards the idea of having to survive in this particular marketplace. Do you think it is possible, or it should be considered, that the firms have to pay a certain amount of money or wealth or tax or whatever we want to call it, towards the idea of I want to sell my stuff there? Just like, we as a family would decide if I want 2 children or 4 children. I know that 4 would be nice, but can I afford it? No, probably not. So something in those lines, can the firms, or should the firms be given also a moral decision given by the government even, and the people?
Well, in my opinion, the problem doesn't lie in people being stupid. The problem lies in people not being stupid at all. And as you said, it was very noble from your part, but it was also naive, I might say. Well, it's about the trust and not being stupid. The government can't allow me a security, safe country, keep the virus from spreading. By it they claim they can change the earth temperature if I pay more taxes, right? Well, I do not necessarily trust this issue, and I won't allow anyone on this planet to make me feel guilty because I'm alive about what you said. Should I have 2 children or 4 children? That 2 children would be better than that? No. The better to the planet would be that BP company won't have a catastrophic oil ship crash and then use paper straws instead of plastic and tell me that they are climate neutral and I need to feel guilty and consider having less children. No, it's greenwashing. And the people won't accept these procedures, so they won't submit to those treatments. This is why I'm positive that there is a way to change and there is a way to encourage everyone to participate in green transformation. And people will, being tired of greenwashing, eco-terror, will follow a very competitive leader who will claim to do it in the fair way. As you said about your investigation that you've made, well, I might say that you might came to the wrong conclusion because you may ask people 2 questions. First of all, would you like sustainability? Yes. And second question, would you like to pay more to get more sustainable products or services? And when they answer yes to the first question and no to the second question, you may conclude they want green planet, but they do not want to participate in the process. I don't think that's the right train of thoughts. I won't talk about Amazon because I don't have any problems with Amazon, but imagine another company commonly known, for example, Nestle. Anyone representing Nestle company? Imagine Nestle, okay, to be politically correct. Imagine Nestle ask me, okay, would you like to buy my products for $10 or for $12, but it will be more sustainable? If I answer no, it is not because I do not want the planet to be more sustainable. It is I do not trust your company that you will make my extra $2 more worthy in case of ESG that I can do it myself. This is the lack of trust and not lack of willing to make planet feel more green. What you've done, Nestle company, to the third world countries, how you exploit the local people, areas, I do not believe you do not have my reclamation that I'm trusting you that much that pay you extra for your product and you will have better impact on this money, using this money that I can use it myself. This might be the issue.
So, is it audible? Yes. So, I would little bit lighter the environment. So on a lighter note, I just was wondering, it's not a question, but just my personal thoughts, like I was wondering, in my country and I see in a lot of other countries as well. So I was wondering why there is not that realistic efforts coming from the top also. Like everything is expected from citizens will start following sustainable practice and again, that is good. But from the top, I was expecting, like, for example, I want sustainable health, suppose. And for sustainable health, everyone knows that alcohol is not good. But now government is allowing, industries are manufacturing, it is giving discounts, and now we are asking the citizens, please don't consume it. So I will say the reverse approach should be there. Like, in fact, personally, I say, when I come to Poland, I find that I'm finding beer at the cost of water. So could government make some restrictions at the top? Similarly, not only alcohol, other beverages or anything which is making unsustainable practices, like a lot of ACs, air conditions. So why we manufacture and then government allow manufacturing, take taxes, and then ask citizens, please don't consume it. So that was my thought.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Yep.
Just only a consideration. It is related to the only actor that has been not quoted at the moment, the shareholder. And especially in the USA, where there are public companies, the shareholder are the only actor that are protected by the law, by the contract between the management and the shareholder. So the problem is how to demonstrate that an investment in sustainability has a positive return for the shareholder. And that is probably the only way to accept the question, in the sense that the sustainability, there is the same problem for corporate social responsibility that stands for ESG of today. It has failed probably because it has not been demonstrated that there is a positive impact on the value of the share. So I think that that has been already said by Kotler, that the firm have to improve, to leverage on their creativity, to permit the investment in environment and also in society to be productive. And that is the field in which the firm can contribute, because they have the expertise, the capabilities to make the business related to sustainability and investment and also an opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
There is a discussion right now in the European Union about the linking remuneration of the boards and the shareholders with the execution of a sustainability plan. So I don't think it's going to happen because the lobby is really strong, but I keep my fingers crossed. But there was a proposal to link the board remuneration with the execution of the sustainability plans. And I think that's the only way we can some kind of leverage that problem. Because if they won't, get money from doing good, nothing will stop them, let's say.
It's a regulation again.
It should be. I don't know if that will be, because there's a huge discussion about it right now on the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive level. But let's hope it's going to be good, and we're going to defend that one part of CSRD.
Just wanted to give you an example. In Italy, there is a film that is named Ferrarelli. It is within the water industry. It has invested in the recovery of the plastic bottle, has created a plant. He recovered a lot of bottle for itself, and at the same time sell the new bottle to the competitors. This is the solution. They naturally leverage on the claim zero impact, but they have transformed this problematic in a business.
Well, during the previous speech, I'm a little bit opposite, in my opinion, to both of you. First of all, in terms of investors managing the creation of the companies. Well, imagine in Japan, over 60% of every stock on the stock market and every company bond is owned by the central bank right now. It's not decided by private investors why that they invest in one particular company that is more sustainable or the other one. It is public money and central banks' money that run the ownership of pretty much most companies in this monetary system that was transformed after COVID. This is why I've started my speeches during this conference on this very example, because I knew the similar question would happen soon or later. How we can define it? Are regulations the only way? Well, recently there have been a regulation in France that close connection flights were cancelled off in case of global warming and sustainability. Yet it doesn't connect to the private jets owned by billionaires. Is this the world that we're going to build? I tell you another example. What's the cost of feeding the poor people in Africa? Not just buying everyone a meal, just making infrastructure so Africa won't die in starvation. In 2013, it was calculated of $15 billion, and the same amount of money that was spent in European Union for food for dogs and cats in 1 year. What kind of sustainability are we talking at? And those people make those regulations, implement this hypocrisy. to the people. The common people, well, I do not want to necessarily participate in that. And the conclusion is, oh, you don't want the planet green, you're bad. And you need to feel guilty. The ideas and the transparency are the key, not the legislations.
Well, any other questions? Well, I think that, well, of course we have, oh, okay. Sorry, no, I don't need the mic. I just want to come back to the point. I think we're still hammering on the existing system. I think it's time, when I look at this, from where we have this production is the central issue and consumption. And then I think there is a new probably that inflection point in our evolution of institutions where we are looking for an alternative. I think otherwise we're going to keep beating on the same issues and try to find solutions and always hit a brick wall. I mean, that's just my... Thank you very much. And also to be some positive thoughts. Well, actually, the sustainability, I think that is the right directions. But all of us, we have to remember, doesn't matter if we are professors, if we are manager, if we are policymaker, we have to remember that to cross the border, we don't need to jump. We need to just make the simple step. So if all of us will make at least one simple step in the direction to the sustainability, definitely the world will be better. And I strongly believe that this conference, it's just a small step to go to the sustainable life, and step by step, the drops makes the hole in the stones. So I really strongly believe that it will be the right connections and our voice, because everything was recorded, and you can see this on the YouTube later, afterwards. So hopefully that we will... Oh, of course, we didn't ask you for the permission. I'm sorry. But anyway, because we really believe that there is a very, very important directions, and this was the first step, but not the last one. And many times we will have a chance to meet at our university to continue this discussion and maybe to upgrade to the higher level. So thank you very much for all this, for sharing your experience, your ideas, even if there was, because actually you are true, there was a constant Prost, and you try to discover. This will be the next step for the discussion. Thank you very much. And on behalf of the university and the conference, we would like to give you some small gifts. We try to be... This is paper, so it's much sustainable. Anyway, thank you very much. So Magdalena there. And we have some small records and also the homemade chocolate. Thank you very much. Thank you. Michał Szalas Darzuki. Dziękuję serdecznie, dziękuję bardzo, dziękuję. I też prezent, proszę bardzo. Dziękuję. Michał Wyszyński. Najbardziej pesymistyczny. So the first guest, Mateusz Szybner. Aleksandra Burgieszek. And the chair of the session, Jolanta Zrałek. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, so thank you very much. So I think that all of us, we deserve for the good coffee. So you are invited to the floor, to the fourth floor, and we have 25 minutes. Oh, only 15 minutes for the coffee, and then again we're gonna split into two sessions. So one will be on 15, so on this floor, and then 3:15 on the third floor. All right, so 15 minutes for the coffee. Thank you very much.